Yes.
Sam Amick has a secret power. Sam's secret power, who joins us right now, back inside, and we appreciate that. Sam's secret power is, so here's how the timeline went. I'm going to let Sam correct me. Sam from The Athletic, and our thanks to Steve Berman, also from The Athletic, for joining us earlier. So Sam comes on the show yesterday for his weekly hit, which we really appreciate. Sam is on the phone just before he's with us. Oh, hey, Bradley Beal might waive his trade clause. Okay, all right, I'll call you after. I got to do this radio hit. And then he puts his phone down, does the radio hit, says nothing about it. And then 5 seconds after we get off the air, boom, the world is rocked, breaking news. Sam, I don't know if I got that timeline exactly right, but I feel like I'm close. Good morning.
Man, get petty. And what's the saying? So you can stay petty.
I'm Lori Petty. I'm Tom Petty, R.I.P. All of them, buddy.
I'm glad I came on this morning to get trolled.
To defend yourself.
So what, I'm joking. Obviously, that broke shortly after, not, a little bit after Tim was on with us.
It was like 5 hours later.
In the big scheme of
5
things.
5 minutes, 5 hours.
24 hours, that's shortly after. Obviously, we're not talking, we're not asking for sources and methods and all that, but just give us what you can, if you would, the TikTok as to how all that went down, and how were you surprised? Because we had just talked about this being a free agent destination with you on the show, and boom, here we go.
I made a comment, I think, about Dwight Howard, and it's quite the upgrade to start talking about Bradley Beal. The chatter about the Kings and the Wizards having connected on that front came our way. And it's one of those where, listen, it's the time of year where you do ultimately report stuff that, even if you think, like, if I'm handicapping it, do I think it'll happen? I'm certainly on the side of no at this point. But this Beal situation is such that, you try to report as much as possible about all the different possibilities. And the way that it was essentially put to us is that the Kings had positioned themselves as a dark horse in this situation. And the other important thing that, independent of what happens with him, I think is going to make Kings fans happy, is that you got a guy in Bradley Beal who is the only player in the NBA with a no trade clause, which means that, like, this discussion would be dead on arrival if he said, I have zero interest in Sacramento. And our understanding is that is not the case. It's, I think Miami is probably on top of his list. But when the idea of the Kings has been presented to him, he has expressed a willingness to listen.
Sam, it's much like you referred to earlier or yesterday about Dwight Howard. It's a nice gesture, whether or not you believe it or not, but he referred to the Kings as the team you want to play for. Here's Beal, at least willing to listen. I think even the wording, though, in the tweet was, there's no path at the moment. Do you have a rough idea of what, not from the Kings, but what the Wizards want? Are they looking to stockpile picks? I mean, obviously they got to get salary in return. Are they trying to get another all-star back? Do you have a rough gauge on what the Wizards are looking for when they potentially deal Beal?
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly lean towards I don't think they want to go full rebuild, but they are going to be, or at least potentially, if they can make these moves, looking to restructure that roster and go toward the rebuild. They've overhauled their front office. Tommy Shepard was there for a number of years. Tommy Shepard gave Bradley Beal this contract. Tommy Shepard traded for Kristaps Porzingis. He's gone now, and you have a man in Michael Winger, who, to give people quick context there, was the GM of the Clippers, kind of underneath Lawrence Frank for the last couple of years, was a big part of the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard moves coming to the Clippers. So Michael gets hired in DC. He then hires two people, Will Dawkins, who he used to work with in Oklahoma City, as his assistant GM, and then Travis Schlenk, the former head of the Hawks front office, is now the director of player personnel for the Wizards. All of which is to say, like, you don't hire all three of those pretty highly respected executives, if you're not trying to build something sustainable and to reshape this roster. So I think that's the direction they're going. Porzingis, I believe, is opting in, if I remember that correctly. And so, they've got that situation to handle as well. But again, it's so unique with Brad because of that no trade clause that he's got all the leverage. I think the return on value is going to be, minimal compared to what it would be if he didn't have that no trade clause. And those are obstacles, whether it's the Kings or any other team.
Sam Amick of The Athletic joining us. I'm very aware of Bradley Beal and how good he is, and I don't mean any disrespect at all. But help me out here. I don't understand it, considering what the Kings would almost certainly have to give up. The fact that they would be pretty much maxed out, especially with the new cap, with not just Beal, who I think is a top 5 most expensive contract, but also Sabonis being maxed next year. The fact that they're not adding any defense with Beal, the fact that he's averaged 50 games a season for the last 4 years. Can you help me as to why Monty McNair would, in God's name, possibly want to be a part of this?
I mean, because best case scenario, that I guess I'll address the health thing first. Beal was healthy for most of his career until the last couple of years, extremely healthy. And in fact, I've always told you I got one athletic shameless plug a week in me. Fred Katz, who covers the Knicks for us, wrote a great piece on Beal yesterday and talked about these 2 questions, Dave, that you asked. Mm-hmm. And on the health front, it's kind of like shrug your shoulders, hope it goes better. There's nothing chronic here, but it's been a bad couple of years.
Yeah.
On the defense front, he raised an interesting question, which is, philosophically speaking, it was a great line. He said, this is more for a philosopher than a scout. What does it say about, Beal's defense was good when the Wizards were good. And that, most players don't have the mental fortitude to, stay at a certain level on that end of the floor when the environment around them changes. Mm-hmm. And so if he's back in a competitive environment again, can he be a plus defender? Who knows? That's another gamble. But he's a star. He's, this is a guy that, he's a guy that if you're trying to elevate your program, you are still a small market who has a hard time getting top tier talent like the Kings do. I think it's worth looking at. I saw a deal yesterday. I think it was like Malik and Herter. The money is so big. You got to put a lot of guys in there.
Rashawn, I'm sure, was in there.
Yeah,
had to be.
So, I mean, most of the scenarios would probably make me cringe. Maybe a couple of them wouldn't. He's a hell of a player, and I would look at it if I was them.
This is coming from a place of ignorance, Sam. Does the no trade clause? I don't know that. Does it go with him, or is that void? If it does,
it goes with him. Yeah.
Oh wow,
interesting.
So
that's the other part. And again, I'm stealing from Fred's insight. Is that in terms of future planning, if it doesn't work, you're
right. Right.
Yeah.
And in your history of this, there's not ever been a ton of guys with no trade. Is that truly problematic for teams?
Yes, I'm trying to think. I mean, there were a few more of them back in the day. I think Kevin Garnett had one. I believe when he went to the Celtics, I think Kobe had one at one point. It is problematic because it's from a leverage standpoint. It's problematic, but it's also there's 2 sides to that coin. If you're the Kings and, I think Brad, is he 30, 31? He's still pretty young.
30. He's 29. He'll be 30 in July.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a monster. He is that classic guy who, I think it could work. He's incredible. If it did work, great. And you're going to probably, whoever gets him, if he does get moved, the price tag on that deal for a player of that caliber is going to reflect the complications that come with the no trade clause. It's going to be a lot less. So on the front end, you're going to save money, assets, so to speak, with risk on the back end.
We're being told in our ear we got a break, but I'm not letting you off the hook without asking you real quick. We got 20 seconds. John Morant, I gave you credit earlier. You were, I think, a couple games away, but certainly more in the ballpark than I was. So your streak is now at 6. Your thoughts on the suspension?
Yeah, I think I actually, man, you're not giving me enough credit. I think I nailed it right on the nose.
Did you nail it?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. I knew it was something around that.
And I don't mind sharing now. I'm going to write a column today. I know we got to go. I was at the finals. The commissioner was around. Conversations happen. I had a good idea where this was going. And I'll try to illuminate, his thought process in this column that I'm going to write. I think it's fine. It's, he's not David Stern. We know that. This is very serious. I don't think they were prepared to sink him for the entire season, and probably with concern that might sink the young man's entire career. So he's going to have an extremely, extremely short leash going forward. And also who knows, there's other situations with him that have not been resolved. Yeah. And so who knows if other headlines could spark.
We appreciate the double up, Sam.
Yeah,
of course. No worries, guys.
Next time,
Thank you.
Next time, just break the news on our show.
So sorry.
Have a great weekend. Say hi to the family. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. See you.
All right, take care. That's Sam Amick, nice enough to double up with us. We'll take a break. When we come back, the guests keep rolling on. Just 1 minute away, Casey Pratt, our friend from ABC in the Bay Area, has been